And now to talk about our module of the week, let's turn it over to Martin, a maintainer of a number of Drupal modules and recipes of his own. Martin, what do you have for us this week?
Thanks, Nick. Have you ever wanted to connect your Drupal website to an external data source to include their data sets into the presentation of your Drupal managed content? There's a module for that. It's called External Entities, and it was created in May of 2015 by user Addix, although the most recent release is by Colin Schwartz, a fellow Canadian. It has versions 8.x 2.0 beta 1 and 3.0.0 beta 4 versions available, the latter of which supports Drupal 10 and 11. It is actively maintained. In fact, the latest release was less than a month ago. It does technically have security coverage, though it needs a stable release. It also has test coverage and a pretty extensive user guide. It has 77 open issues, 3 of which are bugs against the 3.x branch, though one of those is already marked as fixed, which is all pretty good considering the site is officially in use by 679 sites according to Drupal.org. Now, the external entities module lets you map fields from external data sources to fields on a virtual entity in Drupal. This allows for external data to be used with Drupal's powerful features like views, entity queries, or search API, as well as your local Drupal site's theme to theme data from an external source. The module does provide a time-based caching layer for external entities, but you can also implement a more custom cache exploration logic through custom code. External entities can also have annotations, essentially Drupal managed information that will be associated with the external entity and accessed as a normal field through all of the Drupal field operations. This could allow you to have Drupal-based comments on the information from a different website, for example. There is a sizable ecosystem of companion modules to help you to connect to different kinds of external storage, as well as to help you aggregate data from multiple sources. In my Drupal career, I've worked on a number of higher education websites, and the ability to display externally managed data is pretty common, either from an HRIS system to show staff and faculty data or a courseware solution like Banner. So I thought this would be an interesting tangent to today's topic. Let's talk about external entities.
Yeah, this is a great module. I want to pause for a second and talk about their icon though. I don't know if you saw it. It's like a squid or a Drupal octopus. It's definitely pretty cool. As for the module itself, I could have used this back in 2010 when I was building some distributed higher ed sites, and it's not even just the courseware or staff that want to be shared. There's always like little pieces of content that either, if a professor gets their own site that they want to share between their courses or, um, their syllabi or something. And it's just, you know, if this works as it says, which I believe it does, it seems like a really convenient way to kind of manage that. And then you're not you're not duplicating all that code with some sort of, you know, expensive migration operation that's happening nightly or hourly or something. It's just pulling in the cache data. So it seems uh, pretty niche, but really powerful.
I remember you actually using this module, I wanna say, like, 2016 for a client back when I was in digital marketing, and like, most of the content we had to pull in through an API, and this worked really well to allow us to handle, like, any other entities in the system. I forget what the website was for, but it worked pretty well when I used it back then. I think that was, like, Drupal 8, so
Yeah, I've worked on a lot of projects that have done this sort of thing using the migrate module, which, like anything else, has its pros and cons. One of the things I'm curious about is, does anyone know if there's a way to integrate this with media entities? Because I would probably say that like 3/4 of the external integrations that I've seen on our projects end up going into the media system because you're integrating with some custom DAM or something like that. And I couldn't tell if it only worked with like from the ground up custom entity types, or if you could do something like map it to a node content type or a media type or a taxonomy type.
So the project page does specifically call out that one of the differences between versions 2 and 3 is native support for files and images. So I suspect that it does have that ability to use those kinds of data as well. I would suspect that there's an ability to map those, or to, I guess, in some way, probably reference maybe from a media entity, one of those virtual entities that ultimately has data that's from that external source. But it would probably need someone who can speak to a higher level of experience with the module than I have to kind of answer that more authoritatively in terms of how you'd want to set that up.
I really like the options for caching because that's definitely a pain point when you're doing any sort of integration like this. And I've known some of the from an editorial standpoint, the best solutions are ones where the external system somehow tells your Drupal site, hey, this content changed, immediately update, like what Drupal does with its internal caching system. And the fact that you're not just stuck with time-based caching, but can write something totally custom, feels like a pretty smart architectural decision by the authors.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I was thinking about in terms of looking at this module was the potential impact that using something like this could have on sort of the data source in terms of the number of times it could be queried. And I think, I've certainly worked on projects where the customer's IT team really wanted us to have the data reside only in their own sort of application, and then once the public facing website went live, they realized that their system was not at all built to handle the level of queries that actually creates on sort of the dependent data source system. And so, yeah, having this kind of a data caching strategy, I think, is a huge upside for sure.
Very cool. Well, thanks, Martin. As always, you have an on-topic module of the week. If folks wanted to connect or suggest a module of the week, what's the best way for them to do that?
We're always happy to talk about candidates for module of the week in the Talking Drupal channel of Drupal Slack, or folks can reach out to me directly as Man Clue on all of the Drupal and social channels.